What's up, guys? I'm Kendall, and this is EJ here, and March Madness is obviously here, and we're going to count down our picks for the top 5 moments in the history of the NCAA Tournament, the history of March Madness. Now, of course, there's a lot of buzzer beaters that we've seen in March, a lot of upsets, a lot of Cinderella stories, a lot of great Final Four and national championship game to EJ. But we're going to have to whittle it down to 5.
Yeah.
So it's a tough task, but what do you have for us?
So I'm going to go first here. It is tough because you're talking about upsets. How do you weigh that with national championship wins and Final Four shots? And it was a tough list, but I'll start with number 5. And number 5 one was Michael Jordan's game-winning shot against Georgetown in 1982. It's the beginning. It's the origin story of the greatest basketball player of all time. I mean, I think that while the shot might have been the most spectacular thing ever, it's like, again, it's the origin story to maybe one of the most important basketball stories we have in our history.
Right.
Big shot, one of the biggest games in national championship history at that moment. So that was a no-brainer. The Carolina versus the Georgetown bad guys kind of attitude that they kind of came with. It was a perfect dichotomy of a game, and that shot, of course, again, legendary in terms of what it sparked in terms of the career of Michael Jordan. Number 4, I have Mario Chalmers. Sorry, Mr. Kendall, Memphis fan here, but I have Chalmers' game-tying shot against Memphis in that championship game in 2008. This was an incredible shot. It could have been higher, but it wasn't a game winner, so I kept it at number 4. But talk about a wild comeback in a wild game, and that kind of sending the game into overtime. I know you never forget that shot.
Nope.
And, I certainly will never forget it. So that was great. Number 3, I had Chris Jenkins' 2016 shot. It's only one other buzzer beater in national championship history. This is the second one, and I mean it was a great game, back and forth between Carolina and Villanova. Jenkins hitting that shot to close the show was incredible. Incredible moment for Jay Wright and that Villanova program. And I said it capped off, I thought it was one of the greatest national championship games we've seen in recent history. Number 2, I have Christian Laettner's shot against Kentucky in 1992, often considered the shot. And it's the Elite 8, so sometimes people wonder, okay, well, how is that higher than national championship shots? But I think that the play was so remarkable, the crazy three-quarter court toss from Grant Hill, Laettner catching the ball with 1 or 2 seconds, only having to do one dribble and fire. And again, talking about legacies, that I think also I felt like cemented the legacy of who I think is the second greatest college basketball coach of all time, the greatest of our era.
Player,
No, I'm talking about Coach K. I'm talking about Coach K. Yeah, I'm not talking about Christian Laettner. I think Wooden's the greatest coach of all time, but in terms of the modern era, K is the greatest coach of all time. And without that shot, they don't win their second national championship. And who's to say what happens after that? So I think that sparked a dynasty, that sparked what we have now with Duke basketball. So Laettner's number 2. And number 1, I got Lorenzo Charles. Lorenzo Charles, final national championship game against Houston, 1983. Again, talk about a lot of these. The theme I have here is what they sparked, and it sparked the Jimmy Valvano story. It continued that story that went on to his remarkable life and what he did post basketball and all the stuff he did with the Jimmy V Foundation. But that shot kind of started it all in terms of Valvano's larger than life figure. And I think the reason why I put this number 1 is I don't really have any major Cinderellas, but this was like one of the original Cinderellas. This was a team that was not supposed to get that far, and while they were a major program, they got all the way to the national championship game, and then to win on a miraculous shot in one of the biggest upsets in national championship history. I had to put that number 1.
Yeah, we have some similarities. Number 5, I've got Chris Webber's infamous timeout.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
North Carolina. I feel like, a lot of it has to do with you have the player involved, Chris Webber, who's went on to have a great NBA career and the Fab Five. Their legacy is still felt in college basketball today, especially with the the prevalence of the one and done.
Yeah.
And they were kind of the first kind of team with top freshmen like that.
Yeah.
And to have someone like Chris Webber in that moment choke, and we've seen the kind of the downfall of the Fab Five and their relationship since then. I think that's a moment that we'll never forget in college basketball history. Number 4, I did have Chris Jenkins' 3. I feel like it would be higher if if Chris Jenkins was like more of a star, and if Villanova may have had more cachet that season. But nobody was really super hyped for that matchup, outside of like the super college basketball fans like me and yourself. But I feel like Chris Jenkins is still, that shot is still like, in terms of the situation.
Yeah.
Like you said, Lorenzo Charles and this are the only two buzzer beaters in national championship game history.
Yeah.
And this was like a deep three. This was impressive. So I had that number 4. Number 3, I had UMBC upsetting Virginia, as obviously last season the only 1 seed to ever lose to a 16 seed ever. UMBC, I could have had them higher if they would maybe went on more of a run, but I also thought about Florida Gulf Coast, but again, also didn't go on as long of a run. But I feel like that's something that we've waited decades for.
Yeah.
And so for it to finally happen, it maybe wasn't as thrilling because it wasn't a great
blowout.
game, and Virginia just laid down and killed my bracket because I have in the national championship game. But still an excellent moment in his own right. Number 2, I've got Mario Chalmers. I've had to live a lot of years with that Mario Chalmers shot. You think about what could have been different, especially as a Memphis fan. If he misses that shot, we win the national championship.
I feel like you're projecting a little bit your own, but
it
is your list. I got it, so I get that.
Yeah, we win the national championship. Maybe Cal doesn't go to Kentucky. At least maybe he doesn't. Maybe waits to go to a bigger job. Maybe John Wall ends up at Kentucky. Ends up at Memphis. Maybe Anthony Davis ends up in Memphis. There's a lot of dominoes that maybe could have unfolded had he missed if he misses that shot. And the fact that it gets replayed all the time, like cements his legacy more than even the shot itself did. And another one that gets replayed a lot, number 1, I got Christian Laettner. That one, Chalmers gets replayed a lot, and that was like, 10 years ago. This one was 20 years ago, almost 30 years ago.
Now.
And it's still, every year you'll see Christian Laettner when CBS rolls the tape. So, that shot, Duke, Kentucky.
And that was such a great game, too. That was one of the greatest tournament games we've ever seen.
The players involved, high level. Grant Hill making the pass. It's up there. I think it's the best buzzer beater in college basketball, or at least in NCAA Tournament history.
Now, you don't have Lorenzo Charles on the list at all.
Yeah, that was your number 1.
That's shocking to me.
Yeah, it didn't have the impact for me because, obviously Houston's great. And Jimmy V is a great character, but there's not a whole lot of, not a legend involved in terms of, a player. Lorenzo Charles, kind of similar to Chris Jenkins. But I don't know. I didn't live to see it, or I didn't live to really feel the impact.
But don't you feel like Jimmy V?
If I was watching that, I probably would have had it. I remember the Chris Jenkins.
But don't you, as great as Jimmy with the stuff Jimmy V did post that shot, don't you feel like that shot is it goes right along, or dunk? It goes right along with the Jimmy V legacy, which again I say is larger than basketball at this point, which is why I had it so high.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
And it's so fluky too. That's one of the reasons why.
That's part of the reason why I probably didn't have it. Right?
I love it because that's March Madness.
Chris Jenkins was a little more impressive for me.
But March Madness is wacky. It doesn't make sense. A lot of it is crazy, and the fact that you had an air ball,
Jimmy V running around.
He's dunking it, and the running around of Jimmy V. I don't know. To me, if I had to encompass what's March Madness, I think of Laettner, I think of Lorenzo Charles and Jimmy V running around the court.
Real quick, were there any that you left out of the list?
Bryce Drew almost made it for me. I know that's a first round matchup, but that's to me the quintessential upset buzzer beater first round. And the first round, I don't want to poo poo it. That's as important in March Madness as the national championship game.
Yep.
So it almost made my top 5. It was that close. Keith Smart almost made it. I thought about Danny Ainge with BYU.
The one that gets slept on a lot because it was a missed shot. But I thought about putting Gordon Hayward's missed 3 because that went from being almost arguably the greatest moment in basketball history if Gordon Hayward hits that 3 to a what if scenario. But it still encompassed that long run that Butler had. With Brad Stevens in their first Final Four run, their first national championship run. But I thought that was an excellent moment. I thought about putting it on the list, but couldn't do it because he didn't make the shot.
Underrated moment, too, I think, is Rip Hamilton's game winner against Washington. Rip Hamilton, that started that started a dynasty, and that sparked the national championship run. So that was another great one. But that does it for now in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to check out all of our videos on New Generation Media, and of course subscribe to our YouTube channel, New Generation Media, and check out our podcast, New Generation Podcast Network, SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher. That's Kendall. I'm EJ. Peace.